that was my sign that it was time for me to get help, or I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here for.
Yeah.
Like, realizing that I might not be here because of what I'm doing to myself, it hurts.
The moon shines red, rainy skies ahead, and her heart beats fled. Woke up in her bed to the moonlight.
Hi guys, so today I'm doing a Q&A video with Hannah Curtice.
Hello.
Found her on TikTok. She's pretty cool. And do you just want to start by like introducing yourself a tiny bit?
So my name is Hannah Curtice. I'm 19, almost 20 in July. I'm a local model here in Salt Lake City. I'm a model for Rockstar Energy, and I'm also a model for 7-Eleven. I'm one of their influencers. I love urban exploring, which is where you go out to ghost towns and you enter into these abandoned buildings.
Wait a minute, I love that so much.
Yeah. So
that's so fun.
It's the funnest thing. You basically get to relive history, and while I'm there, I like to photograph it. So every 2 years, I'll go back and see the timeline of history changing. I was diagnosed with an eating disorder and disordered eating when I was in 5th grade. I have been graduated from high school for about 2 years now, so it's been a while since I've been diagnosed with an eating disorder. I have a channel on TikTok at Hannah Curtice where I'm starting to talk about a growth mindset, on ways to basically change your mindset so you can convince yourself to eat, so you don't have to have a justification to eat.
Yes, we love that.
Yes.
I've used justifications so many times in my own eating disorder, and they don't get you anywhere.
Justifications are going to be the actual death of us.
And I think that that's really cool that you're willing to share your story. And also, I saw that you were doing those types of videos where you like eat some things on camera, encouraging others to do the same with you. And I think that that's really cool that you were able to be vulnerable like that in order to help others as well.
Thank you. That actually was on accident. So I was actually at a point in my life where I wasn't eating for like 4 days.
Oh, wow.
And it was to the point where it's like, I felt, I don't eat in front of my friends or family, but I needed to be with someone to convince me to eat.
Yeah.
So I basically was eating on camera, so it was like I was with a friend, but not actually having to eat with a friend.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, wow, I could trick my mind into thinking this is okay.
So you created your own kind of meal support, and in turn we're being meal support for other people as well.
And I got a lot of support for it. I regret not responding to the comments.
I actually commented on one of those videos. That's how I found you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't end up responding to the comments because I didn't expect to get so much back. Like, I got so many comments just of support and love, advice. And I wasn't expecting to hear that because I was expecting this to just be like a secret little channel of mine where I'd here and there talk about it.
Yeah.
And then just the outpour of love and acceptance that I got from everyone, I loved it, but it made me feel so uncomfortable because I hadn't come out to my family or friends and been open about having an eating disorder.
Yeah.
So for me to be open with the whole world before I was even open with myself or with family or friends, it was just too much. It was just anxiety seeing all those comments.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. Like, it's really good to see all of that support, and it gives you a really good feeling, but at the same time, it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, and it also can push you back further.
Yes.
It can motivate you into getting sicker.
Yeah.
So that's actually why I didn't respond to a lot of the comments, is because I felt motivated to lose more weight and to be classified as sicker.
Yeah.
And so that's actually why I didn't respond, is because I didn't want to trigger my mind into justifying that I needed to be sicker to be considered sick.
Yeah, and that's good. It's good that you went through that whole process and decided what was going to be the healthiest choice for you to make.
Yeah.
So
but it's also really helpful because now I can go back on those comments, and it's also helping me be more honest, like with this channel. It's helping me accept that I have an issue and that I actually can help people with my own thoughts.
And I think that that's amazing. And I think it's really awesome that you want to share that with people. And that you also wanted to go back and look at that from a fresh mindset.
Exactly.
So,
fresh mindset, growth mindset, it's the best mindset.
100%. Today we're going to do a Q&A video, and I asked you guys on this channel and on Instagram to ask me some questions, Hannah and I some questions about recovery, anything really, and Hannah did the same. So that's what we're going to do today. Hannah, do you want to start?
Yes.
Okay.
So I received a question from one of my followers, and they asked, what kinds of treatments can you do? You have been in recovery and different kinds of treatments, so how about you take this one?
So for me, I started going to a therapist initially, and that was not by choice. That's when I was 15, and it took me 3 years to mention to him that I had an eating disorder. And then I realized I needed a new therapist because he was an old man.
He didn't catch on.
No.
Who doesn't catch on to that?
He was like a 60-year-old man. And then I've never talked about this on my channel before, but I don't know how relevant this is.
It's all important.
When I did bring it up to him initially, he guessed what my weight was and then compared my body to other celebrities' bodies.
Wow.
And so I realized that I definitely needed some actual help, and I had my grandma help me find a therapist that specialized in eating disorders, and it was funny because she was actually in the same building as my other therapist that I'd been going to. And so I go to a therapist that specializes in that, and I have for a few years now, and it's actually really helpful because she had one herself, and my dietitian had one herself as well. And I started going to a dietitian shortly after that because my therapist recommended her to me. I don't know how much information this is, or if it's like, that is what they call a treatment team, if you include a doctor with that as well. So I started seeing a treatment team. But then my dietitian and therapist were like, we're going to cut you off if you don't go to treatment. So I went to treatment. It had its pros, it had its cons. Besides that, I have not done a whole lot of research into what other treatment options there are. And I know that that is a big issue for a lot of people. So that was a lot to say so little.
So much, all at once, but it's so good.
Thank you.
So I did some research on treatment and resources. I learned that I'm personally not in full recovery. I'm still at that point in my life where it's still hitting me that I have an issue. The word justification comes up a lot in eating disorders. I'm still trying to justify that I'm sick enough to be considered to have an eating disorder.
I just barely got over that myself. Trust me, I'm not even fully over that. For the most part I am, but it's a difficult thing.
It's a long journey, and it's scary to start, and it's scary to even accept. I'm in the denial acceptance phase. I am denying that I've done this to myself, but I'm accepting that I need to get help to get better. But to do that, I've done some research, and I've realized that pretty much there's only a few options of resources and treatments for you. You can do outpatient and you can do inpatient. Outpatient is where they'll have like a program for you and some different exercises, like journal prompts, different like therapies that you can do to try to help your eating disorder. And then there's a thing called inpatient, and this is where you pretty much get monitored to eat. They make your food for you. They monitor you together. You're a group of individuals that are put together, monitored. So that's an option of treatment as well. But for those of us who don't have the options to pay for treatment, we need to have options too. So I did some research on ways I can help myself, or I can help others become more aware on resources to help themselves. And I learned that pretty much when you have an eating disorder for so long, you lose all appetite. You become nauseous, you become fatigued, you lose feeling, you become dizzy.
And that's just the norm.
Yeah,
it's you forget normal. What it feels like to feel okay.
Yeah, you don't know. It's brain fog. You can't even say certain words because you're like, because your body doesn't have the nutrients it needs to survive. It's literally, you're killing yourself.
I think I was in a constant brain fog for years. I mean, I still partially am a little bit. It's a hard thing to get out of.
It is. And I'm still in a brain fog, and I really hope to be able to get out of that brain fog one day, but it takes time. And one of the resources that you personally can use is medical marijuana or cannabis. There are some medical physicians and medical providers that actually recommend it to you. There's CBD tinctures that you can take that help you gain your appetite. There's some edibles that you can take to make you gain your appetite. There's different ways and different use of cannabis that is helpful so you can have appetite and you're eating and you're getting the nutrients that you want. Like I said, if you don't have the option to pay thousands of dollars for a treatment center, you need to be able to have some resources. So consider cannabis, consider going to a treatment center, but also consider opening up to your family and friends. Because if you're not able to go to a treatment center, you need to be able to have a support system.
100%. And also, even if you do go to a treatment center, you definitely need a support system, because
100%.
when you get out of that treatment center, they isolate you so much from everything. And not just from the world, but like you can't watch commercials of food. You can't you can't even say the word banana without getting in trouble. So you are so incredibly isolated in that environment that when you get out, you're going to be put directly back into the same circumstances you were in when you left. And you need to make sure that those circumstances that you're going back into are ones that are going to be helpful to you and not toxic. I know that that's not an easy choice for everybody, because sometimes like you can't change your circumstances, especially if you're a kid.
And also a lot of people aren't willing to work around you. So if they know that you have an eating disorder, they're like, that's your own problem, learn how to eat. They're not willing to learn trigger words or things that are triggering, like phrases. They're not willing to work on themselves or become more self-aware, so you can help yourself, because we can only do so much for ourselves, that we do need help. And we need the support, but we also need to surround ourselves around people that will accept, hey, this word triggers her, or this word could trigger them. And it doesn't have to be her, because I want you guys to remember there's no gender to a disorder.
Yes, 100%. Eating disorders are not gender specific.
My saving grace was my friend. I wanted to go and get something to eat. I have a safe food. In-N-Out, for some reason, is my safe food. I don't know why, but In-N-Out is my safe food. So I go and get a grilled cheese, no meat, I'm a vegetarian, and I had to call my friend because I couldn't go through the drive-thru. I drove like 20 minutes out of my way to go to this In-N-Out so I could treat myself to something good and delicious, and I couldn't get through the drive-thru. I was literally stuck in the parking lot, and I was just shaking, and I was crying, and I felt numb inside because I was so hungry that it was like I was begging myself to just go, but my body and my mind would not let me physically go through the drive-thru.
Yeah, I get that. It almost feels like it's separate from you.
Yeah, it's like you're in a different body. Like you're looking at yourself, asking yourself, like, why won't you eat? Like, you need this. But your body, the one you're physically in, is telling you no.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you're in a jail, almost. Exactly. Like you want to go do these things. You want to go to events where there's food. You want to eat things that you're craving. But something is telling you that you're not allowed to. And so it feels like you're just constantly at a war with yourself.
So I had actually called a friend when I was in this war with myself. I called a friend, and she called me, and she's like, your reason to eat is you living. Because I was telling her, I was like, I haven't done anything to earn to eat today. And like, I hadn't been open with my friends before that I had an eating disorder. So for her to hear what I was saying, like, I could see the heartbreak in her face and how scared she was for me, because she didn't understand why I couldn't just go through this drive-thru and feed myself. But luckily she was so understanding, and I think she caught on very quickly. She caught on and said, your reason is living. Your reason to eat is living. And I had to keep re-saying that to myself. Like, wow, I'm alive. I deserve to eat.
Yeah.
It took me almost...
It's a good realization.
I'm 19, almost 20. It almost took me 20 years of my life to realize I'm alive. That's enough reason to eat.
Yeah.
I was literally finding justification. Have I gone running today? Have I gone roller skating for a few hours? Like,
yeah.
What have I done to earn to eat, you know? And so just like hearing that, this is why you surround yourself around a good support system, because they might not understand it, but they will be willing to, I don't know, have a different mindset for you. She was able to give me a growth mindset and help me realize I deserve to eat.
Yeah, they're able to help you, show you different perspectives, and they're able to
open your mind.
Yeah, and help you come at it from a different perspective, different ones that you've been able to come at it from before.
Exactly.
And also, as far as resources go, I know that there's this thing called BetterHelp, where people can get help from a therapist just like virtually. I've seen that displayed a lot over social media. You probably have.
I have not. Is that free of charge? Is that like an app?
No.
Okay, I just have to say, this sounds so much like an ad. It's not an ad, I promise. BetterHelp is not sponsoring me. It really sounds like they're sponsoring me, but they're not. So...
So it's not free of charge, but I'm pretty sure that it's a lot less expensive than seeing a traditional therapist, and you also can get in immediately versus...
setting up an appointment
and needing help immediately but not being able to get it immediately. So there's that option as well. And also there's an eating disorder helpline, which I can put in the description down below, and I can also like put it on the screen right here. And as far as treatment goes, there's like inpatient, which is where you need medical care, and then there's residential, which is where you still live there, but you don't need as much medical care. And then there's partial hospitalization and outpatient. So
an outpatient is the goal. That is your end goal. Well, your end goal is to be recovered, but outpatient's the closest step to being your best self.
Yeah, I mean, I am still currently an outpatient. I probably will be for a very long time, but I don't mind it. Somebody said, I remember after my family held an intervention and I went away to treatment telling my intake nurse that I wasn't sick enough to be there. Thankfully, she redirected me in the most kind yet firm way of my need to seek recovery to save my life. I will be forever grateful for her and her influence on me that day. It helped set my path to recovery. What were the events or the circumstances that led you to the point of realizing that you needed help and encouraged you to work towards recovery?
So that's a full loaded question.
Yeah. And I gave this some thought on the drive here. There were a few different things. So for me personally, it was a combination of my dietitian and my therapist both saying that they were going to cut me off if I did not go to treatment. That really helped show me just how extreme my situation was, because I really didn't believe that I was bad enough to go to treatment. I had a very not sick enough mindset towards it. And so I didn't think that my situation was bad. I thought that I could be a lot worse and that I should be that bad if I'm going to treatment, if that makes sense. But a lot of people helped me realize that that wasn't the case, and I did actually need help, not only at that point, but at any point in my eating disorder, I needed help. Because it's not about being sick enough. It's about a shift in your mindset. Like, what happens with your body is just a symptom. My dietitian and my therapist cutting me off, that was one thing. And then the other thing was that my friends held an intervention for me in my car. They actually locked me in my car on the freeway and gave me an intervention. And kind of just helped me realize that I needed to go to treatment. It was a really long talk. I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember that it got me to the mindset that I needed to be. I also started passing out a lot, and that made me realize that things were more extreme than I had made them out to be in my head. So, yeah. What was it that made you realize that you wanted to try and do things a little bit differently?
Okay, so I'm still at that point where I want to get better.
Yeah.
with an eating disorder, it's back and forth of, do I want to get better or do I want to stay sick?
Yeah.
And what made me realize that I wanted to get help was I've been I'll eat 1 meal a day, and you're supposed to have 3 meals and snacks throughout the day.
Yeah.
I've been eating 1 meal a day for the past 6 years. I was at a point where I was in middle school, walking to school, and I couldn't walk up the stairs to my classes because I lost feeling in my fingertips. I couldn't feel my tongue. I was holding on to the steps because I was swaying back and forth. Like, this wasn't just a once a week thing. This was an everyday thing. I physically could not walk up the stairs to my classes. There was also a point where just last month I was in Texas filming a commercial for a bigger brand, and we had 1 shot to get the commercial, 1 shot. And here I am passing out of a helicopter because I hadn't eaten for 3 days while we were shooting from 5 in the morning until 11:30 at night, and for 3 days, and I didn't eat for any of those days.
Oh my
And we were physically exerting so much energy. We had 1 shot to get this commercial, and once we had to do an emergency landing in Waco, Texas because of me.
Oh my gosh.
They had the cameras rolling, and they see me passing out of a helicopter. That was my sign that I needed to get help because I didn't think I was sick enough. I had the stigma where I was like, I'm not sick enough. I'm okay. I've been doing this every day of my life. I'm okay. Mm-hmm. Well, it took me passing out of a helicopter and having to call my dad states away saying, hey, I passed out of a helicopter. I'm with some firemen and some paramedics. I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know if I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because when your body starts passing out, it's literally showing you signs of death. You're showing signs of killing yourself. Mm-hmm. Malnutrition is a way of killing yourself.
Yeah.
So when I was having this conversation with my dad, like, hey, I passed out of a helicopter, his first question, have you been eating?
Wow.
Broke my heart.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't had conversations with my parents that I have an eating disorder, you know? Like, we haven't had that conversation. But it's bad enough that they know.
Yeah.
So that was my sign that I needed to get help.
Yeah.
But it's because everyone knew what was wrong with me. And I was trying to hide it. Like, it was like, oh, I'm just so tired. Like, oh, you know, but all the paramedics, have you been eating? Your heart rate's going through the roof. Like, they knew. It's because I wasn't eating.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing to myself. Mm-hmm. So that was my sign that I needed to get help, was when I couldn't eat more than 1 meal a day. It had been 3+ days since I have eaten, and I passed out of a helicopter. That was my sign that it was time for me to get help, or I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here for.
Yeah.
Like, realizing that I might not be here because of what I'm doing to myself, it hurts.
Yeah.
It's like, how could you be killing yourself when you love life so much?
Yeah.
And all you have to do, and it's not all you have to do is eat, but that's really what it is like, I just want to put food into my body and I just can't. Like, I don't understand why I can't. Mm-hmm. Why is it so
simple,
hard?
But it sounds so simple, but it's so hard.
So hard. That's emotional. That's emotional.
Yeah.
Like, my goodness.
But I think it's really good that you got to that realization. And, like, as terrible as that is, sometimes we need to have big, terrifying, awful events happen to make us really see the reality of things. And I'm sorry that you had a situation happen to you like that. That's really, really difficult. But I'm also happy that it was able to shift your mindset to want to treat yourself better and to want to look at the whole picture and your life and want to value your life more.
I'm using the whole experience as helping others become more aware.
Yeah.
Because
that's exactly what I've done too.
It's really hard for me to want to recover.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's other people out in the world that are struggling just as much, if not even worse than me, I want them to know, like, let's talk about it. Like, there's ways to feel better about it, to feel more at ease. And that's why I'm here talking about it, is because it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not something I want the whole world to know that I struggle with, is that I can't eat.
Yeah.
But I'm doing this so others can feel at ease with knowing that they're not alone. Like
Yeah.
People struggle with this.
Exactly. Thank you.
Of course.
So the next question says, do you feel recovered, or do you think that it's a lifelong fight like an alcoholic? I do not feel recovered. I don't think that it's a lifelong fight for a lot of people. I think that it really depends on the person and where you are mentally and where you're willing to go mentally. I know that there are a lot of people that do feel fully recovered, and they feel very confident in that, and I believe them in every way. But for me, I think that that's a possibility. I 100% think that I could in the future get to a point of full recovery, but I've just been up and down so many times the past few years that at this point currently, I am doing really well in recovery, but I don't feel recovered, and I don't think that that's something that I'm going to feel for a long time, but I think that I will feel eventually. So, do you think that full recovery is possible?
I don't know. I haven't been around many people with eating disorders.
Yeah.
Besides you, honestly,
Yeah.
that you're the only person that I've known with an eating disorder
Wow.
that's been open about it.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, it's not possible, because you see addicts all the time, like alcoholics and different kinds of addicts. They recover, but
Yeah.
they still struggle. They still struggle with the mental mindset of, I want to feel this way, you know? And
Yeah.
that's sort of kind of what an eating disorder is too, is you want to feel a certain way. You want to
Yeah.
feel, you know?
Well, and it's an addiction,
Exactly.
too. So,
So I don't know if, I'm not going to say like recovery is 100% not possible, because there's an actual statistic on it where it's like 46%. I actually read this earlier today. 46% fully recover, and the rest go back and forth.
wow.
46.
Okay.
I mean, 46 is close to half,
Yeah.
but it's not half.
Yeah.
So there's like my mind, like where I'm like, is recovery possible? That's what goes on in my head, is it possible without treatment? Because that's something I want to know, is like, can you recover without treatment?
Yeah, no, I think that you can. I mean, for me, the most beneficial things that I have, I can't speak.
It's the brain fog.
For me, recovering after a relapse on my own without treatment was more beneficial than treatment. But that's only because I was making those choices by myself, and nobody was telling me that I had to do those things. So it was very hard in 1,000 different ways, but I did have the experience of treatment beforehand, and I don't know what it would have been like without that. I do think that recovery is possible without treatment. In fact, I've seen a lot of people. Yeah, it is harder, and it's a completely different experience because you don't have all of the knowledge that you gain in treatment, not just about eating disorders in general, but about your specific experience with it. And I know that there are a lot of people on YouTube, if you go find other people's recovery channels, that have fully recovered, that didn't go to treatment centers, and they would go to a therapist, but that's about it.
That's
And
something I want to look into.
yeah, there are amazing recovery channels out there that you can find. There's, I have a video saying a few of them. I can't remember who they are at the moment. So I think that there's a lot of stuff that you can access online now. Not just like therapy, but a lot of people talking about their own experiences, and you can gain a lot of knowledge from doing that. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I feel like that could help with recovery.
I'm definitely going to look on channels and see if, like, what kind of recovery is possible.
Yeah.
But something that I think about when I think about recovering is, see, same brain fog. But
Exactly.
when I'm thinking about recovery, it's, am I going to get another disorder? Because when you read about eating disorders, there's like a mix, EDNOS. So
Yeah.
EDNOS is where you have characteristics of different eating disorders, but you don't have a set characteristic of one eating disorder. I might be able to recover from one eating disorder, but will I gain another eating disorder and have to recover from that? So this is something I might want to look into so I don't trigger myself into
Yeah.
another eating disorder.
Yeah. No, I think for a lot of people it does shift into a different eating disorder, but I feel like that's because you're still looking for control in all the same ways. So if you're able to make progress with improving things in your everyday, day-to-day life and finding control in other areas and stuff, I feel like that's not as big of a possibility. Also, it just really it's very important where your head is at when it comes to that. And I think that, like I said, a lot of people do fully recover. And I think it just completely depends on the person and how determined you are. And not just how determined you are, but also how your specific brain works. Because we all have different brains, and some of them want to hold on to stuff forever, and some of them can just let things go eventually.
So an eating disorder is control.
Yeah.
It's where you're looking for control. So
most of the time. There are specific situations where it isn't about control for people, but I feel like that is the most common thing.
So I'm basically, as long as you're willing to lose control, you're able to recover. Because you do not grow if you're comfortable. So you have to get uncomfortable to grow.
Exactly. That is beautiful.
So, do you have any anxieties or fear with food? Like, what's your hesitation with eating?
Like currently?
Yes.
My anxiety, so I'm not somebody that really counts calories. That isn't really my thing. That was my thing when I was like 15, 16. But for me, it's more about portions. And I get really anxious about portion sizes. So that is one big thing that I get anxious about when it comes to food. Were you wanting to know like what my fear of foods were, or like?
I was just like wondering, do you have like any hesitations when it comes to food? Like, what's your thought process? Like, is it like, I'm afraid to eat this because I'm gonna gain weight, or is it because of another reason?
I mean, now I don't eat to influence my weight. And that is something that has taken me a long time to get to the point of being able to do.
Amazing.
But
I'm
thank
so proud.
you. Also, another thing I don't think I've ever really mentioned on my channel before, but I get really anxious about my hands being dirty when I'm eating. And so I'll like wash my hands several times. I used to think too deeply about food, and so I would be like, what's the molecular level of this grain of rice? Like, I used to get anxious about those types of things, but now I try to just see it as food and not try to think too much about it, because if I get too in my head about what exactly is in the food, then I obsess over it and I don't look at labels, or else I get really anxious about that too. I basically just try to shut my mind off to everything and be like, I need to eat, I'm going to eat, and have that be the end of the story. Because if I think about it more, I go crazy.
I was having a very hard time explaining myself in the moment, but I've obviously had a lot more food anxiety in the past, and I have food anxiety in different ways now, but I just couldn't explain it, and yeah.
See, So I've been hesitant with food since I was probably like 7.
Yeah.
And it's always been like a struggle with just justification of, do I deserve to eat? But also...
Yeah, and it's always been that for me as well. Like, I had to earn it.
Exactly. But I also have had like the thought of, I didn't think this was a thing until I was on TikTok pretty much researching recovery and ways to help myself. And someone said something about them having food anxiety, and I was like, well, food anxiety is a thing, you know? But they went more in depth. They were like, I'm afraid to eat this food because I don't know how it's prepared, or I don't eat eggs because I don't know how they're raised, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten meat since I was literally 7 years old. I'm almost 20. I've been a vegetarian for all these years because I'm afraid of how the meat's been handled, or if it was cleaned right, you know? When I won't go out to restaurants to eat or to celebrate my birthday because I don't know. I worked in fast food, so I know how sleazy people are. They don't wash their hands. They won't wear gloves, you know? Yeah. And so just knowing all that and then going into a restaurant, it's like, I cannot eat there because it's like, I didn't make it myself. I didn't see who made it. I don't even know where this food started at and came from, you know? It's like a whole process of from farm to the store to, you know? Yeah. And so I won't eat out. And so that's my hesitation, is I'm afraid it's not clean. And I didn't think it was an issue until about 2 months ago when I found this video on TikTok, and I was like,
Yeah. You just didn't really think about it.
Yeah. I was just like, well, everyone has like anxiety with food, but
Yeah.
not everyone does have anxiety with food.
Not like that.
Yeah, not like to that extent of like, I'm just not going to eat.
Yeah.
And I missed out. My friend recently passed away, and we did a celebration of life party. And I almost didn't go because they wanted to go out to eat. And I was like, I've already eaten today.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was really going to miss my friend's memorial / celebration of life because I didn't want to go eat noodles at Noodles and Company because I was afraid of them watching me eat.
I've done that so many times. I've missed out on so many experiences from doing that exact same thing because I had already eaten. And
justification.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's something that I'm struggling with, is like being hesitant to eat, because it's like we deserve to eat just like everyone else. And something like when I did that video with me eating in front of the camera, I actually enjoyed the food a lot more. And I forgot how much I liked food, because I was sticking to the same food. I'd eat a baked potato every single day. Like, I've had a baked potato for dinner every single day for the past like 4 months.
Wow.
I get so used to using safe foods that I'm hesitant to using any other food, that it's gotten to the point where it's like, my friend is like, hey, do you want to try this? And I'm like, no. Because I stick to my same things. Like baked potatoes, I stick with my egg salad sandwich. Like, I literally have three meals that are my go-to. I will not eat anything else besides that. And when I go, I'm moving out because I can't eat. I've lived in this house for about 7-8 months, and I've cooked my own meal here about 4 or 5 times. I have to move in with my parents because I'm not able to give myself enough nutrients. I thought that if I moved out on my own, I'd feel like I had enough control that I'd be able to eat and I wouldn't have to justify eating. But I've realized I need help, and I can't do this on my own because I'm literally starving myself because I'm so afraid of how clean my food is. I'll go grocery shopping and I'll eat it for one night, and the next day, like the day after that, I will not eat it because I'm afraid of, has my roommate like touched it? Has it been contaminated? Where has it been? I feel like it's gotten old after a day. Like, I'm afraid I'm gonna throw up because of like food poisoning or something. That's just what I'm going through. It's like, I'm so far into my sickness that I have to move out of the life I've created for myself.
Yeah.
And be fed dinner because I can't do it for myself.
Yeah.
So
that seems like it would be so emotionally and mentally taxing to have to be thinking about that with, I mean, there's already so much that goes into thinking about food when you have an eating disorder.
It's like trying to eat and then justification, and then there's also this other side of me that's like, you're basically a child again because you have to move back into your parents because you don't know how to eat.
Yeah.
When you're in school, you learn like the food triangle and what makes nutrients and all that. I stopped eating breakfast and lunch when I was literally in 3rd grade. That it's like, I don't know how to eat. I don't know what nutrients I can eat or how much I need of it to be healthy.
That's crazy to me, actually, because I was just saying to my dad like a week ago that I feel like a child a lot of the time because I have such a hard time knowing what even to make myself. Like, I don't know how to be a human being most of the time, and my dad always has to make me food.
That is such a difficult thing. I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking before we started filming, but that's the other thing that we kind of related on with the development of our eating disorders as well, is that I would also go to school and not have breakfast and lunch every single day.
Because it was
just
easy to
have
force
dinner.
yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm so busy with schoolwork, I'm so busy with having to think this or go to this class that it's like, I'm just too busy to eat.
Yeah.
And it's easy to justify that because you are busy. But at the same time, I was an amazing student, but my brain fog was so bad. It took me probably 10 times longer to do something because I had no nutrients in me to be able to think clearly. Yeah. It's almost like you're in a dream. It's like your whole world's foggy, but you're there. And it's literally,
exactly.
It's weird.
I feel like, so I have an issue with dissociation, and I dissociate fairly often, and I feel like that goes along with the brain fog so much because it kind of makes you dissociate sometimes. But I'm sorry that you've had to just go over that every single time in your mind when you have to eat. That
I'm
sounds
sorry,
really
we have
terrible.
to. Like, I'm sorry
Yeah.
that eating disorders are a thing.
They're
And
terrible.
I like to say disordered eating because
Disordered eating is actually different from an eating disorder.
really,
And I actually have a video from it on this as well.
An eating disorder is a really big, complex thing that usually requires some kind of treatment or intervention. And disordered eating is not like that. Disordered eating can definitely turn into an eating disorder.
But disordered eating is like, I have a family member who has a hard time eating anything but their specific meals, right? They eat the exact same thing every single day, and they're very, very picky and won't eat anything else for the most part. And also they do restrict on accident though. And then there's also the people that go and do like crazy diets and that have crazy workout regimens and stuff, but they don't have an eating disorder. And so that's when, but it's all about the mindset. It's all about how your thought process is and how your behaviors are based off of that thought process. So my family member can eat very little and eat the same things every day, but not have an eating disorder. People can go on crazy diets and be obsessed with dieting, but still not have an eating disorder. It's very complicated.
this is why we talk about this, so we can become more aware. Because
Yeah.
I was saying, like, I had disordered eating because I was uncomfortable with admitting that I had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
But now that I know this and I'm aware, this is why we become aware.
Yeah.
Is now I'm not going to teach other people the wrong thing and just be like, oh, this is disordered eating, because
Yeah.
it's an eating disorder.
You were going to say you like to say disordered eating because, and I'm just curious what the reason was for that.
I haven't admitted that I have a problem.
I get that. It took me so long to be able to say the words eating disorder.
I have this thing called an eating disorder. It's hard for me to say that. Clinical terms, I still don't feel comfortable saying. It feels more real, and that's scary to me. So
It's so much easier to deny the fact that you have a problem by saying, I have disordered eating.
Or
because
food issues. That's
Exactly.
something that I would say all the time.
That's
too.
what I've been saying. Oh, like, I have a hard time with food, like a relationship with food. And it's so much easier than saying I have an eating disorder, but you need to, I'm not going to say you need to, because admit when you're ready.
Yeah.
But I
Takes
need
time.
to admit that I have an eating disorder. I haven't been open about it. Like, I make posts about, like, on my Instagram, basically, like, your body's the least interesting thing about you, because it is the least interesting about
Yeah.
you. Your personality, what you love about life. Like, I'm trying to not focus on weight, but
That's what I've been doing too.
it's a mindset. Honestly, before we had this conversation, I thought that I needed to get checked out by a doctor and be told, because I have been diagnosed and I have been to a doctor where they told me I've had an eating disorder, but I thought that it took me getting to the hospital with tubes in my face and like IVs in my arm to be like, you're sick. But being able to have this conversation, it's sort of kind of hitting me. I've been promoting all over social media, like, you do not have to be sick enough, like, you are sick enough.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Just even having a unhealthy relationship with food makes you sick enough.
Yes.
And so just having this conversation with you is reiterating to myself, I'm sick enough and I deserve to get help. I deserve it. I deserve this.
Exactly.
So,
And touching on that thing that you said about thinking that you need to be in a hospital with tubes in your face and stuff, that is a mindset that so many people with eating disorders have. It's crazy. When I first went to treatment, when I was in inpatient treatment, there were like 2 people that had feeding tubes. By the time I left, like 60% of them had feeding tubes, because everybody thought that one person is sicker than me, so I don't deserve to be here until I'm as sick as they are. And so then everybody just competed with each other because nobody felt sick enough. But literal doctors told them that they were sick enough to be there. People admitted them into this program because they were sick enough to be there. Not only that, but like, even if they didn't have all of these medical issues, even if they were completely fine, medically,
mindset is
the
sick
mindset,
enough.
yes, exactly. If you cannot function properly, you're sick enough.
And see, I just want to say, we say get help. It's not always as easy for a lot of us, because there was an instance where, like I've said, I haven't come out to my parents saying like, hey, I have an eating disorder, but I did ask for help when I was in 4th grade. I said, hey, I think I need to go into treatment. So like, it was me like coming out, but at the same time it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the first question that was asked was, how much is this going to cost? And I immediately felt invalidated, and I shut down and I stopped talking, because it's like, I'm not sick enough. And my parents literally invalidating me and pretty much telling me, you're not sick enough to get treatment. It made it so that as an almost 20-year-old, I still haven't gotten treatment because I'm not sick enough.
But you are.
But I am.
You so are.
I'm so happy to be having these conversations, because it's making not only me aware, but hopefully you guys aware that there's recovery out there. And
Yeah.
I'm getting excited being able to have this conversation, because I'm excited to do more research and to see what other resources are out there. I'm going to reach out to other people that have eating disorder channels. This is making me so excited, just having these conversations, becoming more aware, because that's what you can do. Is if you feel like you're not ready to get help, just become more aware.
Yeah.
Like, there's steps to getting better, to accept getting help.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. And getting help also doesn't have to be things that cost money. I mean, even if one thing that I like to tell people a lot is, instead of trying to control the things that you can't, try to find new things that you can control. And for me, I do this by finding things that are going to benefit me, that are going to help me. Like, I will maybe work more, then I have more money.
Do you think this has helped you more?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
just this little
doing
channel?
this, yeah, 100%. Talking to you guys, replying to your comments. I get to decide what I do with my channel, and that is a really good source of control for me. And so then when I'm feeling more out of control, I'll make a video, or I'll work, or I'll take
Distract.
a bubble bath or something. I'll do something that is a form of self-care that can be considered control as well. And you can also find control by, if you can't take out negative people in your life that are making you feel out of control, you can put new people in.
That's
right?
true, exactly. And just like how she put herself into my life, and how I'm
Yeah.
putting myself into her life.
Yeah.
New support systems.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can't change the people that are around you, if you can't find a therapist or a dietitian, or simply you just don't have the ability to do that, you can find new people, you can reach out to people that are struggling with the same things that you are, and they're not that hard to find. I mean, I found Hannah, and she lives near me.
Literally,
So-
like, I wasn't expecting, when I read her, like, message, I was just like, wow, there's someone in Utah that's, like, actually doing something to change
Yeah.
an issue.
Treatment doesn't have to be treatment.
Yes. And it's scary, but it's so worth it. I mean, just having, like, seeing this and, like, seeing from your experience,
Oh, it's
I was
so worth
I was
it.
so hesitant, and now it's like, okay, I'm not really as afraid to admit that I need to get help.
Well, Hannah, do you want to make this a part 2?
We're gonna make it a part 2.
Okay.
So check in, because this is happening again.
Yes, and we have new topics that we've already been thinking about to make videos for you guys about.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have Hannah. I was gonna call you Channel.
Channel.
I'm gonna have Hannah on my channel quite a bit more, and that'll be really fun.
Yes.
I'm excited.
I'm excited about this friendship that just formed from,
I know, me too.
from our struggle.
I know, me too.
Like our own support system. I'm excited.
Me too. Thank you so much for participating in this,
Thank you for
and for
having
agreeing
me.
to be on my channel. Yeah.
See you later.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Woo!
Ah!